Is it just me, or does it seem like we've become way too comfortable accepting poor quest design? Because it always feels like we have that crutch of a guide or a wiki to fall back on. Games really do need to do a better job of being clear in their design so that we don't feel the need to find external answers to problems that are in the game themselves. It seems like we've reached a point where there's one objectively right way to progress through a lot of these games, and any deviation from that one correct approach or criticism of limited player freedom is met with hostility from those that just want to follow a guide.
I will have a
RPG.
hold the
RP.
Having to look stuff up on the internet back in the day used to be a last resort, but it seems more and more now people have the guide or wiki open before they even boot up the game. And that's totally fine if that's how you'd like to play, but I do fear that people have been encouraged to do this by cryptic game design. Guides and wikis seem to be more of a necessity than a luxury these days, and if you value your time or sanity and don't want to spend hundreds of hours wandering aimlessly.
Speaking of games that almost seem designed around you having a guide open, let's talk about Elden Ring. It's no secret that we've criticized Elden Ring quite a bit, even though we really enjoy the game. There are some massive problems with it. One of the problems that I have that probably bothers me the most about Elden Ring is the horribly cryptic quest design. There are so many quest lines in Elden Ring that feels like you will never complete them unless you're sitting there with a wiki open, following each and every step flawlessly. It also doesn't help that difficulty has been cranked up so intensely near the end of the game, and more specifically in the DLC, that many people will just break and inevitably resort to using a meta build. Another problem in Elden Ring's design is the story, the narrative, is so deliberately hidden and so obtuse that you probably won't make any sense of it without outside help.
Let's keep it real. The story in this game is garbage. You ask 5 different Elden Ring fans what happened in this game, and you'll get 5 different answers. The story is just Miyazaki's fever dream, and the only reason people pretend to like it is it's their own headcanon.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
And this is no new phenomenon. Even in games as far back as DS1, it is insanely hard to find where you even start the DLC. FromSoft really seems to have designed their games knowing that players will have a wiki open at all times. And I'm really not a fan of how much that can limit player freedom and choice, especially in a game that prides itself on that said freedom.
What, is this a communist country or something? I thought this was America!
But it's not the only one. You also have games like Minecraft, and there are many people that hail Minecraft as a masterpiece. But Minecraft certainly has its issues. Just to reach the end of Minecraft and beat the Ender Dragon without a guide is an accomplishment in and of itself. Retro Gaming Now has a video where he talks about what a blind playthrough of Minecraft would be like and how intuitive and easy would it be to go through the game blind. And one of his conclusions is that it would be terribly difficult. And I think that position's vindicated by one particular streamer named About Oliver. This fella did a blind playthrough that took him about 100 hours, and he beat Minecraft completely blind, and this is celebrated as an achievement. I think this is indicative of how poorly designed the game's guidance is, even though it's a great game, because it seems to presume that you'll be running through the entire game with the wiki open.
I think we can all agree that player freedom is a good thing, but too much freedom without adequate guidance results in us enslaving ourselves to the wiki. Let's also take into account that obtuse quest design isn't a new thing, but it does seem like more and more often developers are adding content into their games with no regard as to how players are actually supposed to find and engage with it. One of my favorite games of all time, Final Fantasy X, I can remember very clearly had legendary weapons tied behind the absolute most cryptic things you could imagine.
Yeah, I'm getting PTSD thinking about having to dodge those 200 lightning bolts or the chocobo racing.
I clearly remember a Smash PS2 controller from the chocobo race. Let's also keep in mind that we don't want the opposite extreme here either. We don't want God of War Ragnarok where our 2 companions are telling us how to solve a puzzle that we haven't even attempted to solve yet because we're just exploring the area surrounding the puzzle.
The gate is down, but it has to stay there. There's a gear, see? Connected to the gate. We'll need to get rid of those rocks.
Or Horizon Forbidden West having overly invasive guidance.
The developer thinks you're stupid, so they took a highlighter and drew exactly where you need to go. What we're really looking for is games with good quest design and guidance that have multiple solutions to allow for maximum player freedom and expression. I'm thinking of games like Baldur's Gate 3 or even old games like Fallout New Vegas that had multiple different branching paths for quests to maximize the role-playing elements of these RPG games. Even if you didn't take the optimal route, one of the things that you know when you interact with these games is that your playthrough will be yours.
Well, on top of player freedom, another thing I'd like to see more of in games, and the Portal series does a great job here, is games teaching the player in a way that incentivizes you to learn within the game rather than going externally to find solutions. Portal 2 specifically, they drip feed you new mechanics. Like, you start out and all you have are your 2 portals, but as you go on, you get these new light bridge mechanics, you get these paint mechanics that introduce new movement physics and using momentum to go through portals. They introduce the levels to you in such a way that they get more difficult as you go, but the earlier levels do a great job in showing you how to use these mechanics to overcome the obstacles the game sets in front of you. What we're really getting at here is that there needs to be a happy medium between Elden Ring's cryptic quest design versus a Ubisoft product where the UI is just cluttered with map markers and indicators. One thing you'll never hear us complain about is more options. I think Rise of the Tomb Raider did a great job with this in the sense that when we talked about Horizon earlier, spray painting all of the climbing points bright yellow, Rise of the Tomb Raider actually gives you 3 separate options on how overt the guidance is in the game.
One of the things I worry about with the rise of the wiki meta is that gaming is supposed to be a hobby, not a job. And at least for people like us, it really feels like you're clocking into your second job whenever the moment you get home, you have to clock back into this wiki just to know what to do in a game. When I boot up games, I'm looking to relax and have fun, not to do research for some cryptic quest that I will probably never do again. And I suppose the message we're really hoping to send with all this is we're hoping that we can encourage game devs to create games with greater degrees of player freedom so that we can just focus on playing the game the way that we want to, rather than to have our nose buried in some wiki.